I think it's really important for parents to realize that the majority of kids are going to experiment with drugs and alcohol, typically marijuana and alcohol, long before you would like them to. Do not freak out if this happens, because the vast majority of them are not going to have a problem. And although a lot of people would say, oh, get them into treatment, etc., the problem is that our treatment centers put the marijuana users in with the heroin and cocaine users. And this is not where you're basically taking your kid out of a bad peer group and putting them into a, for lack of a better word, worse peer group. And this is not what you want to do if your kid doesn't actually have a problem. So you want to be very careful with anybody who's telling you to do something extreme, like get your kid kidnapped or, and there are wilderness programs and emotional growth boarding schools and all kinds of tough love places that actually do a lot of harm to kids and parents. So unfortunately, because of the bad nature of our treatment system, it's not like you can, just in case. You could end up doing harm by trying to help, and that is a real issue. But what I would say for parents is that the real risk factors for kids to have serious drug problems are having a mental illness, having a history of severe trauma, and having some kind of outlying temperament. So if your kid is especially impulsive or has ADHD or, is adopted and was in a horrible orphanage for their first years of life, these are going to raise their risk. And what parents can do, most importantly, is do as much as they can to make kids feel loved, comfortable, and safe. And that's not always easy with teenagers, and it doesn't always, there's lots of wonderful parents who have addicted kids, but if the kid feels safe to come to you if they run into a problem, that is what you want in terms of, that's the best thing you can have in terms of prevention. Because, and one of the other things I say, to kids is, if you shouldn't try things, but if you do try something and it's the best thing ever, that is a warning sign. That means do not dive in head first and go for it, because that is where the problems develop. There's a lot of people, the people who don't have addiction problems, they get exposed to a drug that's like the best thing ever, and they say, oh my God, I better not do this again because this could ruin my life. And this is why addiction is such a complicated problem, because you would think that overwhelming pleasure would just take over everybody. But most people have meaningful lives that they don't want to lose and that they don't want to ruin. And when they see a sort of instant bliss experience, it says, well, they say, whoa, like this, I better not mess with this. I could just lose myself in this. So unfortunately, that is the response of the majority of people. And also, fortunately, most people do not find most drugs, even opiates, overwhelmingly euphoric. The response is hugely varied in relation to your genes and to the setting in which you take the drugs and all kinds of other things. So it's really important to recognize that this is a developmental thing. And, the truth is that in your teens and in your early 20s is when you are at highest risk. And the other advice I always like to give parents is to be honest and to try to get kids to delay as long as possible. Just like you would do with sex, probably. You want, because, their brains are growing, and the more time they have to develop other coping skills, and the more time they have to sort of complete the development of their prefrontal cortex, the less likely they will be to get into trouble. Because if you don't develop an addiction by your mid-20s, like 90% of all addictions occur, and start in that time. If you don't do that, your odds of getting addicted are like single digits. It's really low.